Alrighty, we're back with our third and final video of the deeper dive into each faction's DLC. Slaanesh got a little delayed because I had some real life stuff, like just work and things that kept me from making this video. So we'll get it out to you. Sorry, it's a little bit late. And then for the rest of our pre-DLC coverage, I'll have a mix of current patch games that were just really hype or DLC patch games looking at the new units. So let's get into this information video. So similar to Norska and the High Elves, just going to look at all the units quick before we dive into some specific replays about them. Slaanesh got a lot of lords and heroes. I guess we can dive into them. Basic Chaos Sorcerer Lord doesn't have anything too crazy about him. Just has some hybrid melee steeds, has a War Shrine mount, and then he has 2 lores. So it's just a generic Lord of Chaos. Nothing really that special to talk about there. Slaanesh will take the option, but they already had a Herald of Slaanesh for a generic caster. They already had a Zazel for a cheapish caster, so having a Mortal Caster Lord, good. Nothing to complain about, it's fine. Then we have T'Challa and the Mask of Slaanesh, 2 legendary Lord options. T'Challa is fine. T'Challa's fine. Incredibly expensive. Moderately fast, really good melee stats, but low armor and relatively low HP for a monstrous lord. Does get a vortex to clear out some dudes, and then has a defensive stance for melee defense and missile block, has a different defensive stance for armor and damage resistance, or has an offensive stance that you can't opt out of, where you can increase your damage but decrease your melee defense by 50%. This can offer some interesting battle dynamics with T'Challa, but I do find it weird that there's 2 defensive ones and they kind of do the same thing. Like minus 50% melee attack, but you get more melee defense and missile block, or you can get flat damage resistance and armor, but you do less damage. Like, I don't know. It feels a little weird. I'm not complaining. It's just it's strange. Strange doesn't have to mean negative or positive. It's just odd, right? Usually you see characters with 2 things. It's like, do you want to increase defense or do you want to increase offense? And this is like, there's 2 increased defense and they kind of do the same thing. So it's interesting. I do want to see how people use those. Then you have the Elixir of Damnation, an augment that imbues her blade, where if she hits someone, they'll lose 100% of their melee attack, remove terror, ITP, and fear. So she can terror out off even terror-causing things. So it's interesting. She's fine, and I haven't gotten to play too much against other players, but in unit testing in my couple games I have played so far where I saw T'Challa, she did all right. She did all right. My big reason I'm couching my opinions on T'Challa, and you can kind of sense that I'm like hesitating a lot. I would be a lot more excited about T'Challa if the next character didn't exist in the same DLC. But I feel like T'Challa just gets overshadowed by the Mask of Slaanesh right now. For a significantly cheaper price point, you can get an infantry-sized character with really high melee defense, weapon strength, all that stuff, like T'Challa, a good amount less HP, but you can get more melee defense from Slippery, you can get a ton of damage from Hero Killing Blow, but then you can get a Mortis Engine dance, so you have a constant Mortis Engine with a -6 leadership debuff, and she can get a heal that's like a Melkoth's you cast, so you want to target something expensive, like the Fireborn or something, and you deal damage to them while healing yourself, and it's a pretty good sized heal. And then you have 2 dances that don't matter at all, so you want to take those off. Honestly, I would take off Slippery. So with Heroic Killing Blow, a Mortis Engine, and a self-heal / damage spell, it's only 1650 for a 70 speed Footlord. 70 speed Footlord with 60 melee stats. Now the other dances, you might be like, don't skip over him, you idiot. I'm getting to those, but listen, Chief, you can pay 200 gold for any of these 3 dances. They cannot be active at the same time, so you have to pick one at a time while in battle. You could get 10% speed missile resist for anyone around you, minus 15% speed and vigor for anyone around you. That's fine. Like, not bad. You could get +6 melee attack for yourself or allies, and -6 melee attack for enemies, so a 12 melee attack debuff for 200 gold. Or you could get a Mortis Engine with a leadership debuff attached to it. Like, I don't know. And then the fact that you have to pay for the other ones that you can switch between in battle, like you're paying for the diversity. I kind of wish their price would go down if you selected one. So it's like, you don't have to pay 200, 200, 200. Maybe it's you pay 200 and then these two are now 100 gold and you pay another one and that one's now 50 or something. If you want the options, but mostly you're just going to want the Mortis Engine minus leadership buff. It's pretty crazy. And with their insanely high melee defense while being an infantry lord at 70 speed, they are incredibly hard to take down. Very tough. 80 base leadership too. It's just insane. I've played a couple games with the mask as well, and they're essentially unbreakable. Like, it's so hard to route them. They're just an unbreakable foot Mortis engine with 70 speed. It's not okay. It's not okay. It's messed up. So, the mask is insanely powerful. Then we're on to the heroes. The Druchii Anointed seems like they could be cool, but I don't know. You can have a cold one or a demonic steed. Demonic steed just feels significantly better. For 100 gold more, you get a lot more stats. You might as well upgrade to that. And then you get some bound Lash of Slaanesh, bound Hysterical Frenzy, one bound Soul Stealer. It's all fine. This character's a little expensive and kind of squishy with less than 5,000 HP, even on a mount. But yeah, they're fine. I don't really have a lot to complain about them. They're solid. Yeah, they're okay. No real issue with it. Just a good part of a hero hammer for Slaanesh. Then you have the Exalted Hero of Slaanesh, which I honestly kind of thought they had, but then when I looked, they still didn't have it. So you can have the Glamour, -5 aura, Rock of Inevitability for another aura, debuff and slow for your opponents. You get Disarm, which is kind of cool. Kind of. Affected units in range if a lord or a hero. And it's Enable if your leadership is higher than broken, so you can just debuff other lords. So he's a good anti-lord or hero duelist guy. You can have a demonic steed for armor piercing and stuff, so he's fine. A little spendy, but fine. Again, nothing really too in-depth to go into here. He's just a melee hero. It's fine. Strykar feels weird. He's incredibly expensive. And then you can take him on a steed of Slaanesh or demonic steed. Both those are fine. Gets Soporific Musk. Solid. Then he gets Glorious Slaughter. If an enemy unit is routing or broken, gives himself speed, charge bonus, and melee attack. For 150 gold, probably doesn't seem worth it. Demonic Whispers. Gives you leadership and terror if you have the Mark of Slaanesh. So you can give an ally terror and leadership to just make them a little spookier for a bit. Chaos Armor gives him damage reflection, which they seem to really like. And then he gets a leadership and speed buff, and then a speed and melee defense debuff for enemies for every unit nearby with wavering leadership. And then Sonic Boom, it looks cool, but doesn't do that much damage. It's just a big old explosion. So he's kind of a support. He's a frontline support guy, but butt naked, he's 1,000 gold for okay melee stats. And then if you start adding any of the things you would actually want on him, like I guess Demonic Winds or Whispers, I guess Sonic Boom, I mean, he's just getting really expensive to be a foot character. I don't know. And his stats are bugged right there because it thinks I'm on a steed. But if you put him on a steed, he's even more expensive. I don't know, man. It seems like he was kind of designed to be a frontline general. Like you just put him on foot and put him in your front line. But then his incredibly high price point on a roster that's already crazy expensive is rough. Like if he was on Skaven, I'm just being stupid, but like if he was on Skaven, then you could have a cheap front line with him, and then he could buff up that cheap front line and make him a little imposing or something, maybe, sure. But Slaanesh already has incredibly small builds because they're high price points, so he's just not going to help much there. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Strykar. Styrkar. Yeah, that one. On to the multi-entity stuff. So Slaanesh got 2 very powerful legendary lords. They got some solid heroes. So far, a powerful DLC for them. I am concerned about the mask for multiplayer, but like power level wise, sure, Slaanesh will take him. Domination's gonna have real fun with 2 Mortis engines, and I have a replay of that later. So for the new infantry, I am equally confused. I've heard a lot of things, so I'm not a tabletop guy, but I've heard Slongors on tabletop were javelin throwing infantry. Well, they're not. They're dual weapon anti-infantry, non-armor piercing. Okay. They are good. Primal Fury plus Pleasure Through Pain plus Mark of Slaanesh, giving them like ITP. So it's just beastmen with Strider and ITP and really high combat stats. They do good work for 650. They're a very solid unit. I'm not trying to say this is a bad unit, but Slaanesh is already amazing at murdering your front line with Gusto. So having a beastman to also murder your front line with Gusto seems a little silly. I charge bonus too, especially when it's getting buffed up. And then the other melee infantry they got, this one is more confusing to me. So the Beastman unit, I don't think the Slaanesh roster needed it, but it's a good unit on a roster that already achieves the same task. The devotees of Slaanesh just boggle me. You could pay 1,000 gold for a 30 armor infantry unit, and it's anti-infantry, but it's not armor piercing, and its melee attack and melee defense is fine, but with 30 armor, low HP, and low model count, you're still going to get bodied. And they get this passive. The longer they're in melee, they get more damage and more leadership. That's kind of cool, I guess. But in my experience, I did a couple tests with these guys, and then I played a couple games with them involved. And it's like they get obliterated by chariots or cavalry or spells or archers because they don't have missile block chance. They don't have armor. So it's like, sure, if you get them into combat with other infantry, preferably non-armored, they do okay, I guess. But it's not even like they do amazing. It's not like they get in there and just absolutely wreck fools and this is their whole being. And yes, they're weak to everything else, but they murder infantry. It's like they're fine. They're fine at killing infantry and they're terrible at everything else. And I don't know, they're 1,000 gold. Now remember the Norska video where I was saying like, man, the Dreadmaw is so OP for 1,000 gold. This one devotee of Slaanesh is 1,000 gold. Ugh, 975. But whatever. I don't see a point. I just don't see a point. You could get Forsaken, which are faster and have a higher weapon strength if you just want to blend through things. You can get Demonettes that have actual armor piercing and they're also faster. That's another thing. You have like a lightly armored elf and their speed is 35. Well, on the same roster, you have Demonettes and Forsaken that are both putting double-digit speed bonuses over these guys. Even the Slaanesh have double-digit speed bonuses. I don't know. The devotees just feel like they're homeless on this roster. I am very pessimistic on the devotees. Then the devotees of Slaanesh with crossbows. I have a whole bunch of unit tests to go through and show you. There's a big conversation about these guys. The main thing is the threat of the devotees with crossbows being on the roster will help Slaanesh immensely because you can't just blob or box now that the faction has reliable ranged tools and armor piercing ranged. That being said, this unit is terrible. Having it is important for Slaanesh. You need to have the threat of archers to stop people from doing super cringy builds that just abuse Slaanesh's all melee all day strategies. But this unit sucks, right? So it's like, it's weird because a unit that I think is terrible will also probably make Slaanesh much better because it exists. Because you can't build so extremely against Slaanesh anymore. You'll have to play a little more fair, and then Slaanesh can really abuse you in other ways. But it is weird because I think this unit sucks ass, and we'll talk about it. All right, Heralds of Excess, the Seeker Chariot ROR. I was thinking about making a separate video about it, but just put it in your back pocket that it's 250 gold more expensive than the Seeker Chariot. You get better stats, I guess, and you get Perfect Vigor. Otherwise, it's just Seeker Chariot. Riders of the Mighty Serpent, you know them from the Norska roster we already went through, but just an ROR. Yeah, just an ROR, Runner Horseman. And then we get some of the more fun stuff. Pleasure Seekers are very, very good. So the Lords, we started off with very, very good. Heroes, okay. Infantry, we have one good, one bad. Missile Infantry, important, but bad. Okay. But here comes the real stuff. Pleasure Seekers are insane. I played a couple games and these guys just don't die. They only have 30 armor and bronze shields and a low HP threshold overall. So I thought basic archers would take them out, and that replay will come out eventually. They just zipped past my archers. Like, my archers were shooting them, and they got into a fight with Illyrian Reavers holding them in place, and they got in a fight with another Illyrian Reaver holding them in place. Archers shooting at them the whole time. These guys took almost no damage from the archers. Like, I'm being hyperbolic, but still, they just fought under constant arrow fire, took very little damage, and then ran all my archers down too. I'm like, what is this? Why aren't they taking damage from my missiles? And if they don't take damage from missiles due to their serpentine bodies in melee, they have 55 melee defense, which for heavy cav is actually very high. Really good melee stats, really good armor piercing, really good models and animations, and then they have a self heal if anybody is wavering near them. So these guys kick tons of ass. Move over, Fiends. Actually, Fiends just got a new best friend, so Slaanesh got even more fast monstrous cav that wrecks fools. They have poison and magic damage as well since they're demonic. And then we have some cool units that aren't particularly amazing. The Praetons are not good. They're an SEM monster. They cause terror. They fly around. They're kind of meant to be like this assassin. They have good anti-large, really good weapon strength, very fast flying unit. But yeah, they mostly get buffs when other stuff's already routing near them. And then they have an ability that we'll get into in a second, but it's not very good. Melee damage reflection on a single entity is pretty whatever, but losing 24 melee defense when you only have 28 to begin with, this thing essentially knocks itself down to 0 melee defense just to get melee damage reflection. That's pretty bad. I don't like that. And then the ROR Praeton, the Scourge of Arden, has the same problem with the all-consuming hatred thing. It has frenzy and all that. I don't actually know what it gets that's that different. Higher stats. Oh, it gets hide in forest. So it can fly through a forest while stalked. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. So it could be flying through the forest to get around your opponent or something. They'd have no idea it's coming. You know that bug that Malagor had where he could fly and be hidden? This has that intentionally. All right, then the Champions of Slaanesh and the Pleasure Guard ROR of them. Champions of Slaanesh are kind of meant to be Slaanesh's Wrathmongers. It seems like they're meant to just jump into infantry and slaughter them over and over again. In practice, they do that okay. They do a lot of damage quite quickly, but they take a decent amount in return, whereas Wrathmongers for Khorne can kill literally infinite infantry and keep going. These guys do run out. They get attritioned. 60 armor, bronze shields. They eventually die off. Their ROR is a little spicier. So for a bit extra gold, you get 200 extra gold, you get more stats, obviously, but you get Unbreakable, Unyielding Assaults. They can't reduce their melee attack, and then the higher stats, that's really good. So just having Unbreakable monstrous infantry following you around everywhere is pretty good. I really like to run them with the Mask. I kind of keep them as my Mortis engine protecting bodyguard. They're pretty fun for that. 65 speed isn't bad either. I do wonder if you're going to see much of them getting played, though, when there's other amazing monstrous options on this roster. Like, you have Pleasure Seekers, you have Fiends, you have Heart Seekers, you have regular Seekers. There we go, I was blanking on it. So already the niche of monstrous armor-piercing infantry killer is definitely handled on this roster. Like, cycle charging with Fiends or Pleasure Seekers is going to easily kill everything, so you don't necessarily need the Champions of Slaanesh, but more options are always better. I'm not complaining. So the Slaanesh roster got a lot of buffs in the meta, and they're going to be very strong in the meta, while they also have the most units that I don't see the point of in the DLC, which is interesting. Like, they have some of the best and some of the worst, in my opinion. So, it's neat. We'll get into some of the specific replays now. Okay, we're just gonna get this out of the way first, and then we'll get into some positivity. But like, the Heralds of Excess Secret Chariot ROR is the new worst regiment of renown in the game. You can pay extra money to get a better stat Secret Chariot with Perfect Vigor. Okay, cool. Let's charge some Devoted Marauders. Now, these are low armor infantry with no charge bonus, no charge defense. You did a little bit of damage, but the regular Seeker did the same amount of damage. and they get through. The regular Seeker gets stuck. Okay. I think that's more of just an RNG of the charge than actually anything about the Regiment of Renown, but maybe I'm wrong. Let's go back around to the front. You can see the regular Seeker Chariot actually did do more damage because it stayed in combat longer, though it took enough damage on the other end. And let's charge some devoted Marauders of Slaanesh with Hell Scourges. Not even like halberds or anything. Ah, shit. We're now stuck in devoted Marauders with Hell Scourges. And I give them orders to pass through. And they're trying really hard. And they're trying really hard. And they're taking less damage than their Seeker compatriots, but they're not doing well. They've gotten 100 value. And now we charge through armored infantry. Again, no charge defense. And again, they get bogged down in them pretty bad. They do some decent damage on the charge, and then I try and push them through, and a couple of them just get stuck. It's the worst. It's the worst. It's the worst. It is the worst Regiment of Renown in the whole game. Secret Chariots are bad. Giving them a Regiment of Renown that does nothing but cost more, it doesn't mean it's any better. It's the worst. It is the worst. So yeah, you gotta fix Secret Chariots before you can make an ROR for Secret Chariots. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. The negativity is over. The rest of this video is positive, but Secret Chariots are ass, bro. They're terrible. Okay. All right. So, showing off some of the monstrous units. We have the Praetons and then both champions of Slaanesh and the Pleasure Seekers. Versus just some High Elves who are gonna stand around and get attacked. So for the Praetons, I did decide to just fly them through the woods. I wanted to check, and there it is. You can see the ROR is stocked, while the other one was not. And they're just going to fly in. So looking at the models quick. The Pleasure Seekers, riding new and improved Doot Snoots. It's just Demonettes on Doot Snoots, armor-piercing heavy cav. And then we have the Champions of Slaanesh and their ROR. Snake people with really high anti-infantry stats. So for the Praetons, I have the ROR fighting a Flamespire Phoenix and the regulars fighting a Star Dragon. Like, I know that's not fair. I'm not comparing the ROR to the other thing. I just wanted to see how they do versus monsters. You can see the ROR is actually kicking the Phoenix's ass. The regular is doing okay against Star Dragon, but he is losing overall. So as anti-large flying duelists, they do pretty well, honestly. And you can see here the champions of Slaanesh, the Pleasure Guard and the other one, are massacring infantry, which is what they do. They are taking a bit of damage in return, but not too much, not too terrible. It's fine. So they are infantry blending monstrous infantry, which is nice. And then I land my Praetons. So what I didn't love, just make sure I don't miss the Pleasure Seekers charge. Okay, Pleasure Seekers coming in. I'll get back to the Praetons in a second. Pleasure Seekers just slithering up there, slamming in the Dragon Princes. Now we are on sandbox mode. I know the Dragon Princes didn't countercharge me, yada yada, I get that, but look at the damage output, and they are taking nothing in return. That 55 melee defense versus, by the way, Dragon Princes have 44 melee defense with Martial Mastery active. With Martial Mastery on, they have 44 melee defense. The Pleasure Seekers have 55 base. That's insanely high melee defense for a heavy cab unit, and they just slam into the Dragon Princes and kill those guys off. Now, anyway, back to the Praetons. They're pretty bad at killing infantry. That was the main thing I was trying to show here. They're doing some terror, they're doing some stuff, but they're mostly seeming to be meant to fight against other large single entities and just beat the shit out of them. Do some good damage there, do some assassination stuff. The basic Praeton took more damage than the Scourge, because the Scourge has higher melee stats in every way, but also the Scourge was fighting a Flamespire Phoenix. I acknowledge that. I really think their ability is quite bad, though. Lowering your melee defense down, the basic one lowers melee defense to like literally 0, and the ROR lowers it to 12. Just to get some melee damage reflection is quite worthless. So, yeah, I don't love that. Pleasure Seekers, these guys are nuts. So fast, so good, so strong. Between Heart Seekers, and these Pleasure Seekers, I don't think anybody's beating Slaanesh in a cav fight ever. Which is kind of their whole deal, so I guess that's not that terrible. Yeah. So then we have the Chala, one of the legendary lords. The cooler legendary lord, in my opinion. Has a pretty cool model, pretty cool combat stuff. All right. See, there's the Archmage of Life, who has just Earthblood is all I gave her. And then we have the Fireborn versus T'Challa. Putting it on slow motion here for a second. So I did give her her various dances, Elixir of Damnation, and then I gave her the Whirlwind of Pleasure. And going into this, I have Dagger Dance. So I thought it would be more worthwhile to get 25% damage resistance on my otherwise squishy Lord. And then I thought her combat stats would shine through even without it. So that was my thinking on this. I thought she would just benefit from that extra damage resistance because she still has physical resistance for being a demon. So she takes 45% reduced damage here. Anyway, jumping in. So this happened really quickly. With her spin move, whatever that thing's called, Whirlwind of Pleasure, she massacres the Fireborn, and her Elixir of Damnation brings them down to 8 melee attack as they start to run away. So T'Challa is going to be very fearsome against cavalry. We will see the spin again in a second because I was talking about something else, and I will replay that spin for you with some clever editing tricks. But I did just want to like talk about her stats and her performance versus the Fireborn. So now she's just going to be in there fighting. And she also has really high melee defense. This Slaanesh DLC loves melee defense. 60 melee defense is high. The Dragon Prince ROR doesn't have as much melee attack as she has melee defense. They have 50. They do have bonus versus large that gets them up to 65. So 65 versus 60. But she's really taking no damage at all, and she even terror routes them away. Soon she'll turn on the High Elf caster. So she is a little squishy. You can see the High Elf gets a charge on her and does get some decent damage out. But it's like the Fireborn with healing and a Lord can't 2v1 T'Challa if she uses her spin well. She can just beat them all up. But she takes a lot of damage in the process. She is still pretty squishy, all things considered. So we're going to watch the spin a little closer up this time. You might be like, Human Boy, it's an unfair example. The Fireborn charged into her and then she got a spin that killed them all. That would never happen. Actually, that could happen. If she's going for your backline, gotta sneeze. If she's going for your backline and like trying to get into your archers or trying to kill your Lord and you need to peel with something, you're gonna have to charge her with like cavalry of some kind, and then they're gonna envelop her like this, and she can spin without like, there's no way for you to dodge it. It's pretty much instantaneous. So anyway, watch the spin damage. I'm gonna play it on normal speed. There goes half your Fireborn's HP. Yeah, more than that. So T'Challa's pretty scary. A little squishy, you know, even with the damage resistant stuff, she ends up getting super low. But yeah, if you fight with her spin cooldown, she's very good, and especially if she has support as well, because now she's just surrounded. But we already saw the rest of this replay, so I'll move on. But yes, T'Challa is quite good, but is overshadowed by the next character. All right, so I put the mask in the same situation, and remember that the mask is like 9 with the build I have for them. I think they're about 900 gold cheaper than T'Challa. 70 speed foot character, by the way, is just booking towards the Fireborn, but okay. 70 speed, Mortis engine, hero killing blow. I did bring Slippery and then the Staff of Masks. Sprinting in there, getting into a fight. Only 15 armor, but their infantry size does make them harder for a lot of things to deal with. Now everybody in here is getting Mortis engine drained. The Archmage of Life is in a duel with the Mask. So the Mask pops their heal, the Staff of Masks, and is starting to heal up while the Fireborn are taking damage. So already outpacing the Fireborn on damage quite quickly. Already got almost 1,000 value from Mortis engineering these guys down. The Fireborn trying to get another charge back in as they got Earthblood healing. And the Mask is going to just keep grinding away. So with high melee defense, high speed, and infantry sized, she can't get surrounded by nearly as many things. Or he or they. I've heard everyone use every pronoun for the Mask, so I don't know what gender the Mask is supposed to be, if they're even supposed to have one. But yeah, a foot, 70 speed, duelist with self-healing and a Mortis engine. That is not very expensive. The Mask is going to be the best Lord for Slaanesh. It just is. It just is. T'Challa's also good. Azazel is still good, all that stuff, but like, I don't see why you wouldn't take the Mask. As they just killed everyone that T'Challa did. Came out the other end with the same HP as T'Challa did for 900 gold less. Like, Come on, brother. I'm just gonna casually run down the Fireborn. Don't worry about it. I have Slippery activated, so once that wears off, but yeah. That's messed up. That's probably the best Lord on Slaanesh's roster. That might be the best Lord in the game. So this replay, I acknowledge that I set up a perfect situation for these units, but when I'm trying to prove a point, I will set up the best situation, not the worst situation. The worst situation would be a bunch of archers, but I guess that doesn't even affect the mask. So Domination might have a bit of a problem coming their way. We'll see, because I've heard Slaanesh is very strong in Domination. I know they were for quite a long time, and they took several nerfs in a row. But after this DLC, I think they're going to be back, baby. They're going to be back to the top of the Domination ladders, and Dom hosts are going to have to do something, because you already have the super mobile cavalry, yada yada. You have the fast infantry, yada yada. You have Slaangors, which are very good, light infantry, yada yada. But you also now have a devastating combo of 2 different Mortis engine effects. You can have T'Challa's Dance of Dreaming, and then you can still have the Chaos Sorcerer of Shadows, and it's extra efficient, because with a melee lord, you already want a caster hero. So it's not like you have to take 2 casters and waste money paying for things you don't need. It's like, no, T'Challa, not T'Challa, the mask already needs a caster hero to support them, so you might as well just get another Mortis engine. So here I have 2 Chaos Warriors with Hell Scourges just for high melee defense, something for me to fight on, and then I have my mask with just the Mortis engine and the heal, and then I have a Chaos Sorcerer of Shadows with just Melkoths and the Giver of Torturous Glory. Also, both of my Mortis engines have self-healing. The mask has their 2-use ability to heal up, and the Chaos Sorcerer of Shadows has healing every time they cast. So Slaanesh in Domination can have 2 healing Mortis engines, and one of them is a duelist, and another one is a chariot that gives everyone around it better leadership stats. They're just going to sit on a point, and they will never get off that point ever. Ever. You can't out melee grind them. It's going to be insane. So to prove that point, I have Nakai, a monstrous armor-piercing lord guy, and then I have a bunch of Saurus warriors, skink cohorts, temple guard, and Cold One riders. And again, yes, the AI is just going to blob up as I drain them down. Yes, this is the best case scenario I'm lining up, but also Mortis engine effects are very strong in multiplayer. They have been for a very long time, and I am showing you why, as the mask and this Sorcerer of Shadows are just murdering everybody. And meanwhile, Nakai is 1v1ing the mask. He costs more than the mask, and the mask is currently 1v1ing him. And you can't say he's not getting 1v1'd, because he has way more support around here than the mask does. So the mask can beat Nakai in melee while Mortis engineering down his entire army. And I didn't even bring any spells that help. So this fight is purely Nakai getting his ass beat by the mask. And now he can't even run away because the mask is faster than him. So against that entire Lizamond army, my Chaos Warriors got 1,400 value apiece, but 3,400 on my caster, 4,900 on the mask, as Nakai got 1,100. The mask is insanely powerful, insanely strong. I would not be surprised if they got nerfed either right after release or before release, but as of this moment, they're busted. They're busted. This is like, it reminds me of the Incarnate Elemental of Beasts and the Mutal Vortex Beast, where it's like, we need a fast duelist Mortis engine monster. This is a fast duelist Mortis engine infantry character, but same difference. They do everything. They're not even that expensive. Oh, God. So now we come to the last topic I want to talk about, and I have the most conflicted feelings about the devotees of Slaanesh with crossbows, because, as I was saying in the unit screen, their existence on the Slaanesh roster is great, and it forces your opponents to not just blob up and fight you with giant single entities that Slaanesh couldn't previously deal with. So we have devotees of Slaanesh with crossbows. They have decently high melee attack and melee defense, weapon strength with bonus for infantry, and then missile strength of 20 with armor piercing. But they're 1,100 gold for low armor, low HP. Meanwhile, comparing them to Shades, Shades actually have very similar melee stats, because eventually they're going to get murderous prowess. So that'll help them a lot with their melee stats. But like, they have 50% more range damage. So Shades are better archers and worse melee combatants. But they also cost, I think, is it 150? Are shades 850? I think shades are 850. Crap. Whatever. They cost between 250 to 150 less than the devotees of Slaanesh. But they're comparable units. But like, as I chunk out this Arachnarok spider, yada 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 yada, while shooting it, right, we killed it in 2 volleys. The shades got 500, 550 value. The devotees got 300, 250 to 300. Yeah, 300. So 300 value a piece. Again, that's close to half of what the shades were getting. The shades are cheaper, significantly cheaper. So you're paying more for a more melee focused shade with less archer potential, but also shades are stocked. You're not stocked. Shades have stock in Vanguard. You just have to walk up in full light of day. Everyone knows you're coming. I don't know. They have some missile resistance and stuff. We'll get into that. But like, essentially, they're comparable to shades, but more expensive. So already not a great start, because shades aren't exactly an OP super broken unit, but they're comparable. They just lose stock. So at this point, I'm just being mean, but I am trying to prove a point. There is a problem with shades already, and that is their melee stats don't matter. Because what finds you usually don't run into shades with basic marauders. You usually catch shades with cavalry. And shades are stocked, so you have to go find them. But the devotees of Slaanesh extra melee stats aren't going to help them against cavalry because they don't have armor. So they're still going to end up taking a lot of damage on the charge when chariots or cavalry rip through them. Now, Hellstriders with Hellscourges hardly do that much damage. But then with the flank, other Hellstriders do a bit better. And we'll see if Heavy Cav can get through the devotees a bit better. Roar! Bam. So we're now engaged. Charge damage on both, pretty equivalent. But you can see that extra melee defense isn't really helping the devotees on the charge. They are lasting a bit longer against the Hellstriders. So we'll fight it out for a little bit. Devotees, the shades here routed. The devotees are holding a little bit longer. So they are holding longer in melee. But I don't know if it's worth it for 1,100 gold to just hold longer in melee. Because Slaanesh has amazing melee units. And that leads me to another point. Oh yeah, I want to check their value. So 500 and 700 value. Whereas the shades got 400 and 400. So better than the shades in melee. And I'll give you that. But here's my problem with this style for Slaanesh. That the devotees are paying more for more melee stats rather than range. Girl, who's getting to these? Who is getting to these? If you can get dogs or cavalry into Slaanesh's backline, Slaanesh already deserves to lose. You can't secure the mobile game with Heartseekers, Seekers, Pleasure Seekers, Rampage Lords, Hellstriders, Nakari, Azazel, T'Challa, the Mask. You can't win the mobile game? So some asshole got onto your archers? Fuck you, you deserve to lose, man. How did anybody get back there? How did anybody get back there? I don't know. If someone gets to your devotees in melee, you fucked up bad, is my point. I don't think they need the melee stats. So you're paying for melee stats that if you use, you deserve to lose. I don't like it. I don't like it. So we've established that Slaanesh's archers are pretty solid in melee if you want to pay 1,100 gold for an archer that's also solid in melee. But I also did have a little conniption about the fact that if they ever get into melee, you did done goof. Because how? So let's see how they compare to other archers. This is going to be 95 out of 100 scenarios they end up in. The damage they're going to take is going to come from artillery or from other archers. So how do they perform against other archers? Quarrelers are half their cost or less. Half their cost or less. Armored, shielded dwarves. And they outrange them. The devotees of Slaanesh, I have to manually move in range because we're in sandbox mode. They will shoot back at me, but whatever archer you're fighting is going to get a first shot off on you because your range is only 130. Quarrelers also have very similar missile strength, except they don't have armor piercing, but devotees of Slaanesh are not armored, so it doesn't matter if your opponent pays for armor piercing or not. So if you're fighting an armored ranged unit your armor piercing evens the score, but your low weapon strength means even low tier archers are going to trade well into you. And the devotees do have missile resistance and physical resistance, but that just doesn't seem to matter. As we get into this duel for a bit, you can see they're firing back my quarrelers. But even when we're in range, the quarrelers are trading about even with a unit that's twice their cost because you're paying for those melee stats. And this is my problem with a lot of hybrid units in general, but especially expensive ones. You have to pay for all the stats you bring, but you can never use your ranged and your melee stats at the same time. So no matter what trade the devotees of Slaanesh are going to be in, if it's a trade, it's bad for them, right? If somebody gets to them in melee, it's probably like a 500, 600 gold melee unit fighting a 1,100 gold half melee unit. So they'll trade about even. Or here we have archers that are half their cost and they're trading about even / the dwarves are winning because you're paying all this stuff. And these guys have no ammunition. They burned all of their ammo shooting at the quarrelers. The quarrelers still have ammo left over. So it's like you have no range, you have no range. You have less range than most archers. You have less ammo than most archers. You have the weapon strength of most of the weakest archers in the game. You're not a very good archer. You're just not a very good archer. All right, human boy, you're a pissant, human boy. We hate you, human boy. Shut up, human boy. That wasn't fair. You picked quarrelers, some of the best anti-archer archers in the game because they have shields and they have good range and they have stuff. All right, bet. I'll pick high elf archers. Less missile strength than quarrelers, less armor, no shields. 450 gold. Now, again, we outranged the Slaaneshis by 50, but I'll pretend that they're walking at me. So I'll get my free volley off, then I'll move up, then I'll get a second volley off, and then I'll move up. And while I'm still reloading, the Slaaneshis will fire back. So I got 1.5 free volleys against the opponents, and now we're back into an archer duel. Now again, you have missile resistance, you have physical resistance, you have armor, but with your piss poor reload speed, your very bad missile strength, you're going to trade very cost inefficiently with even basic high elf archers. That's pretty crazy as both sides get very low in leadership. I wanted to wait for the break. There we go. There's the break. So what's the value on these guys? 360, 390. But on the high elf archer side, oh shit, 700 and 770. So they traded like twice as effectively cost-wise into you. And I know you're sick of me. There's one more example and then I'll cap it off. But yeah, as archers, they're not very good. So now here's my final thing. Now this is a cost-wise fair example because it's not one 450 gold archer versus one 1,100 gold devotee of Slaanesh. It's 2 devotees of Slaanesh versus 5 high elf archers is the more appropriate cost comparison. And when it comes to that, it's not even close. They get bodied. And remember, Burning Head still exists, Pendulum still exists, Melkoth still exists. There's a lot of ways to kill these guys off very easily. So it's a crazy, crazy expensive archer that loses to most other archers. And Human Boy, you said you had mixed feelings on the unit. It sounds like you hate this unit. It sounds like this is the worst unit in the entire world. No, it's just a horribly gold inefficient, terrible unit. But its existence on a roster that's otherwise very one note is super dangerous. So then you have to spread out. You can't just make a monster mash blob to try and beat Slaanesh with big single entity monsters. And when you spread out, Slaanesh will tear you apart. So it is crazy that a unit that I think is garbage, I think is a D tier terrible unit, is also gonna dictate the meta for Slaanesh and make them a much better faction. And it's just insane. But I mean, that's how Slaanesh is designed. So if you finally get a reason for people to come out of their blobs and boxes, then they're gonna have a pretty bad time. I do think that a better dichotomy here would be if the Slaangors were javelin throwing infantry, and then the devotees were your armor piercing crossbows. And then it's like, all right, Slaangors have less ammo, high weapon strength, low armor piercing. The devotees have high ammo, armor piercing, less weapon strength. But whatever. Slaangors are fine. They just do the same thing the rest of the Slaanesh roster already does. But there's your Slaanesh video. I feel like this video came off as more negative than I wanted it to. Slaanesh got a lot of powerful tools and a couple really cool monsters and mounts and stuff, and then they got some stuff I was about. But I think some of the stuff that was strong, I was also worried was going to be really toxic, so it had some overtones of negativity, which, like, fair, in my opinion. But if you're excited about, like, using this stuff in campaign, or you want to play Slaanesh and you want to win games, then yeah, this is going to be a great DLC for you, for sure. I just worry about it as, like, a caster and a multiplayer goon, where I just want everything to be balanced and nice, and just, like, watching a Footlord sprint around with a Mortis engine does not ring the fair and balanced bells to me. The Pleasure Seekers doing so much damage while being so tanky doesn't ring the balanced bells to me. Those kind of things. So, you know, that's why I may have come off as a little more negative on this side, but, like, objectively, the Slaanesh models look good. They're getting some stuff they desperately need. Their campaigns are going to be better, and they're going to go up tier lists in multiplayer for sure. So if you're a Slaanesh fan, big wins for you. GG's. Roar. Subscribe, yes.